What's up? How are you?
Hi.
Hi.
It's so good to see your face.
You too, as always.
I want to say the one thing I love about you, your spirit, is that the first day on set, we were just kikiing. just down, just on the set, just kikiing and laughing.
Yes, we had a good time. I wish we had more time together.
I know. I definitely want to see you in person, and it would be awesome to do one of these interviews with you in person on site somewhere, just over some drinks or something.
Drinks
So
always help, yes.
look at.
And we
So
also went to the same church and never saw each other there.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I go to FCBC.
I love that. See,
Yeah.
I just learned something new. So we gonna do that together once it starts again.
Right.
We gonna go together, and then we gonna go to brunch after.
Get our chat pass and go to brunch.
I love it. Oh my gosh. So let me do a check-in with you. How are you doing with everything that's happening? Where's your spirit at today in this moment? Is there some things that you would like to talk about? Because a lot is happening every day. It's something, especially in our community. So I wanted to check in with you about that.
Yeah, it's so interesting that we automatically on automatic pilot ask how are you, and it's not that we don't mean it. It's become the way that we engage each other. Hey, how are you? And I'm really conscious now of how I automatically say that, and then have to kind of retrace my steps and go. Especially when I'm speaking to my African American brothers and sisters about, because I think that we're at an incredibly powerful moment based on so much pain and, in so many levels, economically, socially, racially, all these things that has given birth to the potential for something quite phenomenal in terms of a shift that can happen in our world. But it's like any growing pains, it's painful.
Yeah, it's very painful. Yeah.
And you think you have your mind and heart wrapped around it, and then it's just like, boom, another thing. And so I find I have to take care of myself in a different way. One being I can only watch a certain amount of news every day.
Yeah, me too.
And I've really, really put myself into my art. Nice. Yeah. So
nice.
Right.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. No. What you said triggers me because I feel that there's a difference in the air too, and I get this hope because I have not in my lifetime seen where the world has come together over Black Lives Matter. And it makes me sad that a loss of life had to happen for people to become aware and be woke, as I like to say, stay woke. He's a catalyst of this, and I wanted to continue because I would love in my lifetime to see an actual progressive change, because we read about the history, we have people in our lives who are just one generation of civil rights movement, just one generation of having their full rights on paper, but still living everyday in life, those rights are not being implemented. And so I, in my lifetime, want to see that happen. And so when I'm looking at the news and I see these videos of people around the world, and there's thousands and thousands of people out, it makes me cry because I've never seen anything like that. And protesting myself, growing up protesting, it's always just been Black faces, African American, just the Black diaspora. But now seeing these young people out together from all walks of background, it just gives me a hope in ways I haven't had before.
Yeah, it's these kinds of major shifts take everybody, right? Yeah. It can't take one group of people, but we all have to be willing to do the work. And the idea of what it is and the reality of what it is are two different things. And so there does need to be a mental, societal shift that has to happen in the systems in this country, that even when African American people were given all these rights, the Voting Rights, Civil Rights Act, all these things, the shift and the mental shift didn't happen, right? In a lot of ways. And so we still, I've been doing a lot of work on music and looking at tracing Negro spirituals and how it influenced and created every style of music, genre of music that exists in America.
Wow, that's amazing.
At every major point of creation of a new style of music, there was some kind of anti-movement in society in terms of legislature or something put in place to block or to lessen or to make smaller African American people. And the response became, I will speak about my pain, I will speak about my sorrow, I will speak about taking back my identity and ownership of pride through my music. So you see, classic blues and country blues and jazz, and you see bebop and rock and roll, all of these things that gave voice. So it's made me hyper aware of how we've always lived in response to something in order to find our place. But now it's about, the only way we can move forward is to acknowledge everybody, acknowledge the past, acknowledge, in order to have justice, you have to really look at and know what injustice is. And I think for the first time, because of COVID, because of people being unemployed and having no money across the board coming in, it put us all, even though it was disproportionately affecting Black and brown people, people were experiencing what that was on a national scale, especially here in New York, that awakened some kind of empathy in a way that had not been awakened before. So, and then you couldn't go nowhere. You had to watch it. When everything happened and everything leading up to that, you had to watch it, right? And so it has awakened people in a way to see things in a way that I don't think our busy lives sometimes give us the opportunity to see.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend about that because I think about if we weren't in, because it's just funny how life works, right? If we weren't in this quarantine, this shutdown with the COVID, I've had those questions. I'm like, George Floyd would just be another hashtag. He would just go, no one would pay attention. Everybody would go watch the film Just Mercy with Jamie Foxx or whatever, and then go back to their lives and just go, oh, I saw the movie, but nothing really changes or whatever, they go see that deals with our lives. But the fact is that people had, like you said, everything was shut down. People are out of work. People are going through their own personal struggles and their own pain. And then they see this and it's like, no, we can't have this. And it fills me with some joy in the sense of that our community has been talking about this forever. As a kid, I remember my parents, my grandparents, you can say even the first slave ship, it's like Amistad, it's like, give us free, like, come on. And so to see this happen in my lifetime, a shift like this, I just want to stay hopeful because we cannot. What gets me upset is that we cannot go back to what it was before. Like, it's just gonna break my heart. It's just gonna break my heart.
Yeah, and I don't think that we can. I mean, I think COVID-19, until there is a vaccine, all that, there is no return to the way it was. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's still a part of our existence, and as we see, it's rising in certain states, and and it's been made into this political thing instead of it being a health issue, a challenge for our country and around the world. And so I think, and I want to, like you, to remain hopeful. I want to know also what our responsibility as artists are in this moment. Artists have always been the community that has challenged society and pushed things forward and asked the difficult questions and put a reflection, a mirror on what's going on. And so in this moment, I think of 50, 100 years from now when they look back, and they will look back at this moment because it's just, in terms of history, it's such an amazing.
Yeah, we're living through some amazing times right now.
What will they see? Well, how will they understand this moment? Through the art that we create, through the movements that we make, through the connections that we make, through the protests that we make. It's a powerfully potent time, and we have to step into it boldly, bravely, with curiosity, with empathy, and with a fire in our bellies to make things different.
Well, with you talking about the theater, talk to me about what Black Theater Arts United. I saw your name signed as one of the originals, and so to your point of having artists be in the world, because when you look at history, when you look at the Ruby Dees and the Oscar Davis of the world and the Paul Robinsons of the world, and how the Harlem Renaissance, right? Everything is just, the artists are the ones that, especially in Black life, to say this is what's happening during the time. Billie Holiday, Strange Fruit, and so. To your point, talk to me a little bit about why this is important for you to have this organization right now.
Well, the theater community is a microcosm of what's going on in the world, right? And in this moment, when people can't work. And I think the theater community is one of the last that'll be able to fully return, as they've discovered that things like singing are one of the most contagious ways to transfer the disease between people. So it's going to be probably one of the last steps back to some form of recovery, and especially for artists, that can be very challenging because that's how we make our living. So we're at a moment that has required us to be still, that we have no choice, right? And for a lot of the artists across generations that are working professional artists on Broadway, this is the time of reckoning and the time of awakening, and different generations do it in different ways, though we intersect at many very important values and beliefs. And the generation I belong to, we kind of lovingly call ourselves the OGs, because we've been around a minute. And,
you look so good. You look like you're like 25, so don't even.
Well, we're not gonna talk about that. We ain't gonna talk about that. You know what I'm saying? We're not gonna talk about
okay.
that. But there are people who've been doing this for. I'm coming up on 30 years of being in this business. And people who've been in it 40, 50, 60 years. There's a certain personal and professional currency that you bring to the table. And having been in that environment, in that theater community, having many times been the only one in that community, having many times had to navigate and fight battles where there were no roads paved for you that you had to step into, there is a communal understanding of what that has brought us in terms of artists and the currency that we bring into the space. And so it is important in this moment across the disciplines of acting and management, musical directors, stage management, sound design, all of the different communities that we represent in the arts come together with our communal power to say, we can do something to make a difference with this, right?
Yeah.
And so we have chosen, in terms of our community, to really look at inclusivity and how we can be a voice and a partner with the theater institutions and organizations and producers to create spaces artistically and in the business of being more inclusive and what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
Because in this moment, there is a quickness with which to everyone to post Black Lives Matter. And to me, the saying of it means nothing without the action. I don't care as much about what you say, what you do. And what are the things that we can put into place now in partnership that will lead to deep roots being formed in our community, that will affect change across all of the fields in the theater community. And then to lend our platform to issues that are happening in our country that through who we are, we can support, like fair count, right? Like the census, and things that we can use our personal and professional currency to help draw light on that are so essential in this moment.
I think that's beautiful. I think that is a very important, necessary step. And I'm tired of us being overlooked, our talents being overlooked. Like, I just remember as a kid always being told by my mom and my dad, and you got to be twice as good. You got, and it's like you put your stamp on it, or you seeing other people who are not as good as you or mediocre who get these jobs because they're white or other, and you're being left in the cold. And theater has to represent humanity and the country. And I don't want to keep going to see theater or watch TV shows or things like that I don't see myself in.
Yes.
It's very important. And the world is changing. And we are the global majority. When you travel around the world, we are the global majority. And it's very frustrating when walking around in this existence and the theater or the profession that I've fallen in love with, and a lot of it's anti-Black, And so it's like making those conscious efforts to go, hello, I'm here. I'm gonna do what I have to do. If I have to knock the door down, then I'm gonna do that because I have a right to be here and use the talents that God has given me.
Yeah, and in order to do that, you have to be in the room where those decisions are being made, right? Yeah. You have to know that it's possible. I tell this story all the time. Back when arts was an important part of education, growing up in Ohio, I'm in a suburb outside of Cleveland, we went to see all of the national tours that came through Cleveland at the theaters downtown. And I remember my first one was when I was 8 years old. I saw the national tour of Porgy and Bess. And seeing those people of color up there, those Black people on that stage, doing this thing that I had this, yearning for, but I saw myself in those people, let me know what is possible, right?
Yeah.
And until we see ourselves reflected in something, until we're actually in the rooms where those decisions are being made, it's the shift isn't going to happen, because it's always going to be someone else determining what parts of you are worthy of being told, what parts of stories that you live are worth being told. So it's really not just about what's on stage, but it's like who's writing those stories, who's producing those stories, who's in the offices where they're deciding what stories get picked up and what stories get workshopped. How are we then also going out into the community and sparking those interests in young kids of color to let them know that it is possible to be a sound designer, or to be a choreographer, or to be a lighting designer? How are we creating pipelines so that they have a way in and a partnership and support of? All of that, this is what this moment has given birth to. And so Black Theater United, we are committed to be a part of that shift.
Now, is that part of the reason why you started Broadway Inspirational Voices? You're the artistic director of that. Is that what was the birthing behind that? Because I think that's a beautiful thing as well.
Yeah, I started 25 years ago. I'm only 2.
You're only 25. You started the year I was born.
Right. No, I went to Carnegie Mellon for theater. Got my degree. Came to New York in 1990, right at the height of the AIDS epidemic. And in 1991, in my first Broadway show, I experienced my very first castmate and friend, watching him going from being this beautiful man, who's Native American, beautiful gymnast and dancer, wither away and pass away. And as theater people, as we are, we want to get in there and do something. So out of that, Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS was formed, and we were, doing benefits and raising money, but our spirits were still hollow, right? And for me, growing up in the church and gospel music being such an integral part of how I navigate the world and fill those spaces within myself, we needed something that was spiritual, that was welcoming of all people. And so I decided to do a benefit for Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, with 11 of my friends, a diverse group, because it was important to me that it once again be all people involved. And we just had an evening of gospel music, and the response was overwhelming, because people who had been told they didn't belong in that space, or people who felt like there wasn't a place for them there, and this diverse group of people singing on stage mirrored the people that came, and it was just such a healing moment. So that was all I planned. And then we did it the next year, and the next year, and the next year, and eventually we became an LLC, and then eventually we became a 501c3, and then we started doing outreach programs, so that we are creating music programs with Ronald McDonald House Partnership, with Covenant House New York. And it has grown into this organization that's about music being at the center of touching people, healing people, and service. And here we are 25 years later.
I love that. And then the 2019 Tony Award recipient of Best Theater. How was that feeling? What was that like? What was that experience for you? You recognize, it's like you do, because you're just doing the love out of service of who you called to be, right? Because we go to FCBC and we're living, and our pastor is always about living your authentic self. And you are just living your authentic self. You're doing what you're called. You're listening to the voice in you, and you're like, I'm going to use music as a service to live, love, and serve. And then all of a sudden, here comes the 2019 award, which you're not focused on, but here it is. So how was that for you?
I always feel like God has a sense of humor, because it had to be the lowest moment emotionally in my life, where I was going through some stuff. And and we call it, my friend Angela Robinson calls it the valley of preparation. There are moments in your life where you have to be in a certain place in order to break and crack some stuff up and make space for, new roots to sprout. And I was in a real not good place. And I remember that day, it's so interesting. That day, I was so conscious of that day, going, I don't know how much more I can take of this. this, and not in terms of action, but just in terms of having felt like I tied that knot on the bottom, and I kept tying more knots on the bottom.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, and I was on FaceTime with our executive director, and I got a text from the office saying, give me a call at the office, and VIV office, and I called and said, call this number. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I am not feeling all of this, right? And I called the office and I got a message. And then I left my name and number, and like 10 minutes later, they called back and said that VIV had won the 2019 Tony Award for Excellence in Theater. And I just started crying.
Wow.
And laughing at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you never know. It's like, sometimes you don't know what you need in the moment until it happens. And in that moment, I needed something that I feel like, because of my connection to something greater than myself,
that
acknowledgement that what I've been doing, that people actually saw it, right? That my community that I loved and that I had made a career in saw the work that I was doing, and that we as a community of artists have been doing for 25 years, and acknowledged it with one of the highest accolades they could possibly give us. It was, and then there was just a whirlwind of just absolute sheer pinch yourself, one of those dreams from 8-year-olds watching people on stage. It was a magical moment.
Well, let me tell you about how you're filling me up right now, because our stories are parallel in the sense of, like, I was 7. My mother took me to go see For Colored Girls. Didn't even know what was happening on the stage. I just saw all these beautiful Black women in different colors. And my memory that I have is me sitting in a chair. I can't sit still. My mother trying to keep me still, but the excitement of, like, I knew I wanted to do that. And then there was a scene where the boyfriend drops the babies out the window, and this actress let out this curling scream. And I just remember, it's my first memory as a kid of remembering being in the theater, and how I looked at my mother and I said, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And then she, found it in herself to become a mom, to nurture that side of me, which is not an easy thing to do, right? Your daughter looks at you and goes, I want to be an actress. And then she's like, okay, how do I become a stage mom? She's like one of those kind of things. Right. And so and I want to also say how it shows that how we're not alone. Like, you never know what someone's going through, because that's how I felt when I was nominated and won the Emmy, because I was going through a period in my life where I'm in New York. I went to grad school. I went to Rutgers, got my MFA. I've been wanting to do this since I was 7. I am the type of person, I don't want to wait for the phone to ring. I start creating my own things, doing my own things, but the door keeps closing, especially, even in the community that I love, the Black community that I love in theater. It's like, I'm trying to get through, I'm trying to do all these things, I'm trying to, say what is going on. And so then for the last couple of years, I started to let it go. I was just like, really doing a lot of service at church and just being in prayer and just going, you know what, I have to let it go, even though I'm painfully upset. Like, I don't know what's happening. Where am I going to go? I feel like the doors are closing. And so I let it go. And I was like, you know what, if I do something else in life, or if I move back home, like, I was just going through all these things. And then I got into artist housing. So then I was like, okay. So God's like, okay, well, you're on the right track, because here's the artist housing. And still nothing. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to just keep following. I'm going to go where my flow is. I feel like doors are closing. And then after Forever comes along, I say yes, because I just love working. It's about the work. It's about the story. Michael Slade, who sat down and we talked, and I told him what was important to me about playing a Black lesbian woman on TV. We talked about those things. And I'm just working. I'm not thinking about the Emmy, but inside, I'm like really hurting, going through a lot, upset, just feeling unworthy as an actress. This is all the stuff that you go through. Calling my therapist, crying, pro therapy, amen.
Yes,
and then
yes.
I freaking get this Emmy. You just never know. You never. I'm gonna get all emotional just thinking about it, because it's like, talk about just a lesson in learning how I was dreaming small anyway, because I was thinking, oh yeah, of course, as a kid you want to win an Emmy and all these things, but you don't think that's gonna happen.
Right.
So,
it's a dream.
So for you, getting the Tony Award and like the Emmy, I was going through the same journey that you were going through.
Yeah, and it's like, you talk about closing doors, and what we sometimes don't understand is, and for us who are both are very spiritual people,
Yeah.
um, and having that connection to something greater than yourself, faith is nothing until you are in the moment where you need it, right? And so there's a trust that you have to believe sometimes that your road is your road, and that whatever way it is, that's the right road for you. And sometimes doors are closing and you're conscious of those doors closing, but you don't see that window on the other side that's opening up, right? Yeah. So it's like my friend Angela says, it's that valley of preparation. It's those moments when I look back, I remember not so many the highest moments, but the moments when I was the most down as being the moments that really changed something in me, right? Yeah. That taught me the greatest lessons, that prepared me for those moments where I could go, wow, and see where I came from, right? And that's why even in this moment, as African American people, we can look back, right? And see where we've come from, right? And so that's why this moment carries such amazing power and hope as we start to see what we have been experiencing and what we have been wanting spread to other people, wanting to see that happen with us. Because the honest truth is, it's not going to happen unless all of us together demand it and are really willing and ready to do the work. We've got systems to dismantle in this country that have been in the fabric of this country since people set foot on this land, and what they did to indigenous people here. We are still reaping the benefits of the best ideals and the worst of humanity can do, right? Yeah. And the enslavement of peoples, right? And so we got to look at that in order to move forward in a way that is just and fair and human. We got to look back at these injustices and own up to them, right? And so I just went on a little.
No, I mean, I love it because you just I'm about to do some praise. You over here saying a word. You over here saying a word. But I do want to ask you about your with how we're talking about history and we're talking about looking back, and I love your journey so far, and I wanted to talk to you about Rent, because Rent is a huge part of the American theater, just period. A musical before its time, I say, because the topics that were happening, people were taboo to talk about, and the AIDS epidemic, and just seeing the characters on stage. And what was that experience like for you, the journey like for you being in that show and going on every night, being in that musical, because I was one of my favorite musicals to this day. Just the premise, but I don't think it could ever be outdated because people still need to talk about what's happening in that musical. But talk to me a little bit about that for you.
Well, I think it's weird, that foreshadowing that I'm now a professor at NYU, and that's the character Tom Collins. But it was interesting. I auditioned for it way back when it was down in New York Theater Workshop and made it all the way down to the end. And there was conversation about where I would fit or if they were interested in me. But I was doing another show that I had been doing a workshop of for 3 years called Violet, that Eugene Tesori and Brian Crowley wrote. And it was coming to playwrights that spring. And I had been involved for 3 years in workshops waiting for that show to come to fruition. And it did at the same time that Rent was going to be going to New York Theater Workshop. Well, I didn't even like the show. When I auditioned for it, I was like, I had my little tape, my cassette tape with John playing the song "I'll Cover You." I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't want to see that. But I didn't have a job, so I was auditioning.
Amen.
And then playwrights was coming to the performance of Violet was going to happen. So when it got down to the end, my agents removed me from it because I knew I wanted to do Violet. And then while I'm doing Violet, it becomes this huge success at New York Theater Workshop. And then it's the problem. And I've never ever felt like the decisions I made were not right, because what's meant for me is meant for me. As long as I work hard and do my work and have the generosity of spirit and openness, what is meant to be for me will be for me in its time. And so I was doing Violet, hoping and praying that it was going to move to Broadway, but it was not the dream. It was supposed to happen until 20-some years later. And then we found out that we weren't going to move. And I was devastated because I had put 3 years of my life into this show, and I loved this show and believed in this show. And while we were running, they said, the tour is going out. Do you want to audition for Rent, the tour, for sure? I said, no.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I didn't want to leave town because I was in a relationship and I wanted to stay here. Then they said, the West Coast, do you want to audition? I was like, no. And then once we started to get to the end of our extension, I was like, I need a job. And I need, after putting my heart and soul into this show for 3 years and it ending this way, I just want to be in a job. I called it like a post office job. I want to be in something that I can be in for a while and not have to worry so much. And it just so happened that Jesse Martin got a TV show. And they asked me, you know, we all work, we all win.
Hey.
They asked me if I wanted to audition. I was like, yes. So I literally went in on like a Tuesday, and they called me back, I think the next day, and then a day later they offered me the role. And then I started on Broadway like a week later, it was literally within like 2 weeks. And at that time, there were only 3 new cast members at that time. Marcy Harrell replaced Daphne. Adina was replaced by, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. And we're friends, and I can't think of her name, looking right at her. And then I replaced Jessie. So we were there with the original when people were still sleeping outside every night and trying to get tickets for those first 2 rows. And I did the show because I knew who this guy was. You know, you have those characters sometimes that come along and you see them on paper and you go, oh, I know who that is. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean you don't do the work. It just means that you have a kinship of understanding. And so I did the show for about almost 2 years. Then I left. And then 6 years later, they called me and asked me to come back. And at that time, my relationship had ended. And I was in a whole different place. And stepping back into that role, having loved someone and lost someone, and understanding what that journey was in a different way, and then having Rick Collins in that, it blew me away. It blew me away.
Wow, the difference you saw, how much you've evolved and grown as just as a person. Yeah,
and life had changed me in different ways so that I appreciated that journey in a different way. That was I just have been so fortunate, and I love playing that character because he's a Pied Piper, and we get to watch him meet, fall in love, and lose the love of life. And that arc is so rich and so full and so beautiful. And he's a man of great principle and dignity and humor and joy. And I called him the Pied Piper, and he, you know, mischievous, right? And I just loved playing him, and I loved falling in love with Angel every night. And I did it with many different angels.
But I love the fact that Angel was on stage because you didn't at that time, you never saw characters like that on stage. Yeah. You know, so it was it's one of the musicals that push the narrative, you know. Yeah. And then you go and get a Tony nominee, and you know, become a Tony nominee and singing. And so before, I want to ask you about the Tony nomination in that year, but what I want to know is, where did your love of singing come from? When did you know you wanted to sing, or when did you know you could sing? Because I think you could sing too. So when did you know you could? So was it something that is there a story where you came out of the womb singing, or is it just was it a piece of music or a record? What was that for you?
I didn't have a choice. My whole family sings and plays. My grandmother, the matriarch of our family. My grandfather was a minister who started his own church. My grandmother taught herself to play the piano and was the musician at the church. And then when they had my mom was in piano lessons and a child prodigy at 3, playing classical music at 3 and playing in church. So I grew up, everyone in my family plays. My mom plays, my sister, my brother, my uncle, all my nieces and nephews play. So I grew up, you know, singing and playing in church. So I never knew what road I wanted to go. I knew it was going to be musical. It just happened to be theater. But all of us sing and all of us play, and music was a huge part of my life. You know, whether being in church on Sunday all day or in rehearsals for church during the week. But at home, my uncle was a musical director, and he would come and stay with us in the summer and take me to rehearsals. My mom played classical music, but also gospel. And then it was the 70s, so she would have these like really fabulous card parties, where they put up
Oh,
the table,
yes.
and they would play Big Whist.
Yes.
And all these beautiful African-American people would show up in their dashikis and afros, and they have to set up tables, and all that R&B of that time, Millie Jackson, Teddy Pendergrass, Earth, Wind and Fire, all of that music was playing all the time. So I grew up and my mother loved musical theater, so she would travel to New York and see Broadway show and then bring back the cast album. So my second cast album was Pearly. This one was Company. So it was like, I grew up loving all kinds of music, and my mind always wondering, what is it about that combination of notes that makes me feel something? You know what I mean? So I always had that curiosity about when you play certain things together, why is it that makes me feel a certain kind of way?
Yeah. And so let's go back. Let's circle it back to the Tony nomination and the journey of that and being in that show and that musical for you. What was that like? And then being a nominee and having was it your first nomination?
Yes.
So what was that like for you?
That was an amazing year, because Big River. There have been many regional productions that my agents would call me and say, "Do you want to go in for?" And I would always say no. At that time, I knew that I could not find space in my generosity of spirit to be called the N-word on stage every night and be able to let it go.
That's huge. That's real, because I've learned my lesson. Let me tell you something, because when I first got out of grad school, pausing what you say for 2 seconds, I would just say yes to things, and now I'm like, nope, I need to read the script. I need to, I'm not, because I would get in the room, and then I would have to be the black girl that would be like, we're not doing this. Right. And then I would be deemed difficult when I'm not being difficult, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, if I was a white actress and said the same thing, she would be deemed difficult. And like, it's just a way, if I'm standing up for myself in a character and go, nope, this is not right, I know this experience because I am the experience. I'm not being difficult. But anyway, I just want to throw that out there. So read scripts, people. Read your scripts. Okay, keep going.
But I just knew I didn't have space in my spirit to be able to let that go when I left the theater.
Yeah.
And then along comes this production of Big River that's coming from LA, from Deaf West Theater to Broadway, with half deaf actors and half hearing actors. And I was like, deaf actors in a musical, interesting. And so I went in an audition, and then I got called back. And then my second call back, they brought in the actor, Ty, who was playing Huck, who was a deaf actor, fabulous actor. And they brought us in together, and they taught me sign language for one of the songs, and we just sat on the floor together. And the minute we sat on the floor and looked at each other, it's that moment you go, this is it. I know this is it.
Yeah.
And
like when we first met.
Yes, exactly. Those magical moments. And and so before I accepted the role, I talked to Jeff Calhoun about it. I just had to know that the dignity of this man was going to be explored through my experience. And what opened it up was I was a slave who signed. Everything I said, I signed. Everything I sang, I signed. So that immediately cracked open who this guy was in a different way. And for me, it's always about the dignity of who this man is. And so there are things that we added in the show that allowed me, I said, I'm not going to do this. I said,
exactly.
Be here or whatever.
You have to say stuff. You have to speak up. You have to speak up.
Yeah. And then we did the show. And then, once again, one of those low moments, it was going to extend, and it was going to move to another house, and then they said no. And then they said, but we are going to do a tour. But we closed like in July. It was somewhere in the summer, and the tour was going to happen until the following July. And at the end of that year, my relationship that I'd been in for over 8 years ended, and ended horribly. And so once again, I was in one of those valley of preparation moments, and I was sitting at home, and the show had closed. So we closed in the summer or the fall. And then the next May, I got up in the morning, went to the grocery store at like 9 o'clock in the morning or whatever time it was. I came back, and my phone was full.
Yeah.
The messages were full. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And there was people calling to congratulate me that I had been nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I didn't think it was going to happen because we've been closed for 6 months.
Yeah.
Right? And here I was at this moment once again where I didn't have that person that I had been with to share that moment with, right? Yeah. And so it was another moment where it had to be me standing in the center of something by myself and able to value that moment for me and not me in relation to someone else. And then going through that process was the highs and the lows because our show was closed. So there wasn't, when you're nominated and your show is running, there's a whole machine of press and publicity and marketing that are working and helping you navigate that whole experience. Our show was closed. There wasn't anybody. So I navigated it by myself and with some support from some really wonderful people who helped out, gave me a tux for the Tonys,
That's kind of friends you want.
Yes, and so that made it a special. And then the day after the Tonys, we were leaving to go start the tour. But it was a wonderful moment. And then that year also, I was nominated for a Grammy for BIV for our first holiday Christmas CD. So it was just a moment of real blessing. And in a business, we can never allow what we do to define us as human beings, though it is an aspect of who we are. But when you get those accolades, to take the moment and go, this doesn't define me, but it sure does feel good. Right? And it's a gift. And I'm grateful for it. And that means there's much more work to be done. And that's the way I always looked at it.
Amen. Well, I want to, as we are about to wind down, there's a few more questions I want to ask you. I'm just so grateful you're in my life because, like I said in the email, you inspire me so much. You inspire me so much. You drop gems. You say a word, and I'm just like this, like just like in the church, But I'm curious. What made you say yes to After Forever?
Well, I've learned over the years that things that terrify me, I have to say yes. I haven't done a lot of TV or film. And also because I've been teaching full time for the last 10 years, I don't say yes to many shows anymore. So the last Broadway show I did was Sunny in the Park with Jake Gyllenhaal. And it was a very small role in covering because I was still teaching full time and working full time while I was doing the show. But TV, I've done maybe an episode in under 5 or like over 30 years, maybe 3 or 4 times. Right? And they always terrify me because I'm used to the theater experience where you have a rehearsal process, you build up a relationship, and with TV, especially when you're a guest or coming on for a couple episodes, you don't know what's going on, and everybody's in their kind of thing. And what I loved about being a part of when Mike called me, I immediately said yes because it scared the crap out of me, and 2, because I love positive representations of African American gay men, and the gamut of who that can be, and race was not the issue. He was a friend, and he had a boyfriend who was way younger than me. And it scared the crap out of me. But I'll tell you.
Wait. Speaking of way younger, have you seen the picture of Matt Gates' boyfriend or son?
No.
Do you know about this?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, after this interview, you can go do. Have you seen? There's these memes because he was on the floor, Congress floor, and saying how he's a white man with children of color, and then he posted this picture of him and his son, and now the rumors going around that it's not his son, it's like his partner. But anyway, that just triggered that for me to say. So you go look at the memes because Black Twitter. You know how Black Twitter do. So it's like Black Twitter that took it and dragged it, which I was just like, So anyway, after each interview, I like to ask my guests about a cherry pick. It's a way to pay it forward. So for the viewers who are watching, if there's a book that you love or a TV show or an organization that you want to present for people to take a look at or donate to, what would a cherry pick be for you?
Wow. In this moment, I would say donate to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund.
Nice.
That's
a good cherry pick.
And as far as what's on TV right now, I would say Little Fires Everywhere because it takes place in my hometown.
That's the one with Kerry Washington, right?
Yes.
I haven't seen it. It's on my list. So if you say watch it, okay, I'm gonna because it's on my list to watch. So.
But you know that
Okay.
you can go down the YouTube rabbit hole sometimes. You know what I've gone down the rabbit hole with that has really touched my spirit, and this will be my ultimate cherry pick, is the Spirituals in Concert, 1990 Carnegie Hall with Jesse Norman and Kathleen Battle.
Oh.
I don't know. Somebody sent it to me.
Wait, repeat that one more time for the people watching and who will watch this later, because it's gonna save.
YouTube. It's called Spirituals in Concert with Jesse Norman and Kathleen Battle. It was filmed live for 1990 at Carnegie Hall, and somebody sent me the link, and I started watching it, and I got so emotional because here are two incredible women at the height of their careers. You know, in a career in a field that has not valued fully diversity when it comes to many different diverse voices in opera and classical music. At the height, you can't come for them in their skill set and what they're able to do, and they're doing spirituals. They're doing spirituals, and it is like you can't come for us because we are the best of the best, and we're going to bring our music to you in the whitest of the white environments that hasn't always welcomed, nor does it continue to fully welcome us in this space. And we're going to give it to you. And I went down the rabbit hole, and I was up to like 2 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't turn it off because the
I can't wait to watch that.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. And it's that taking our history, right? And that music that was born out of a people who had nothing, had no identity, they had no humanity, they were less than human, and they found a song. They found a way to express their sorrow, their joy, their hope for something better.
And put codes in there. Listen, they did the Negro spirituals, and we come from a people who put codes in songs to protect you when you're trying to escape. I was like, yes, Black people, yes.
Yes. So it's definitely worth watching, and these two women are just phenomenal. And it just, in this moment, because I discovered it, like, I knew about it and I'd seen it, but it was like 2 weeks ago. So we're right in the middle of all that's going on in this country.
Yeah. And
I went down that rabbit hole, and it did my spirit some good.
I love that. Well, for those of you guys who are watching right now, is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to ask? Because, you know, sometimes I'll ask these questions and, you know, we get deep into these interviews, but then there's some people who are like, oh, I want to ask a question. You didn't ask this or talk about that. But while we have Michael with us, is there anything that you want to ask or type in and see? I mean, I can't promise that he'll answer them because, you know, you can't get too personal. But that's a little Brenda. Brenda be like, okay, now listen. Now we can't get a little personal right now. Yeah. But is there anybody? T. Renee wants you to sing, and he's like, no. He's not gonna do.
But I will say this. I didn't get to say this to you. When I was on that set of After Forever, everyone was so welcoming and nice, and from Kevin, Michael, everybody, the cast, everyone was so lovely and made me feel so welcome. And I was so proud to be on a set where there was such diversity and where women were in charge. Yeah. I was like, this is when we talk about what diversity is, it's sometimes given this idea of being somehow we are sacrificing quality. That's the code, right? Yeah. And to be in a room, it just proves when you see these diverse voices and people coming together, the potential of what is powerful and what can happen artistically, and that it was a part of the mission of Kevin and Michael who created this to make sure that those stories were being told through diverse people in that world. I felt really great to be a part of it, and sad when I had to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel a little spoiled because I know I'm spoiled because we shot 2 seasons so far, and being on set and seeing different voices and just having a family, and then, you know, I go shoot a one scene here or something there, and it's not like that, you know, or it's like the star of the show is not nice or whatever, you know, or they're just in their own world, and you got to respect it because it's like it's their show, right? It's like, I'm just coming in to do my little one scene or my little 10 lines, but you also see how other sets are different, and I go back to my set and I'm like, I appreciate the effort that Allison, Kevin, Michael, and I knew right away. That's why I said yes when Michael asked me, because of our coffee conversation. We sat down, and the minute we sat down, we ended up talking for like a couple of hours. We just had such a good time talking and laughing, and just really, he started to tell me about how what his vision was, and I told him about how I saw Brenda, and you don't get that a lot. Some people are like, it is what it is, it's not changing, and then I either have to make the choice to say yes or no. But for someone to say no, it's really important, because for me, again, like I said earlier, it's really important how whoever I play, she's going to be a Black woman. People are going to see that, and this is TV's forever. And 30, 40 years from now, I don't want them looking back going, what the hell was Cherry doing?
You don't want to look back and go, what was I doing?
Okay, amen. Amen. Well, is there anyone else? Wyatt, did you have a question? I see your name popped up, or you say yes, but I thought he was asking a question. But somebody said they're sending a praise dance to us. Yes, praise dance.
That's it. Yeah, and Allison too, because after I finished the 3 episodes that I did, I sent an email just saying thank you, because it was fast. It was all business.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was always a sense of ease and sense of joy, and everybody, like I said, you were so wonderful. Angela was so great. I immediately had this kinship, and everyone was just. It was a family, and everybody made you feel welcome. Everyone went out of their way, because you said, we've been on those sets where it's all business, and it is business. So you can't have that expectation. But everybody went out of their way to say hello, to welcome you, and to talk to you and laugh with you. It was a beautiful, and I love the story. So
and it shows in the story. It shows in the relationships with the actors, with the characters, because it's like the characters love each other and like each other, but then really it's the people really liking the people too. So that's what makes it happen, So anyway, well, listen, I just want to say thank you so much for saying yes to this. Thank you for I wanted you to be the person that I talked to, especially with today and everything going on. Thank you so much for joining me, and I cannot wait till you and I get to talk on the others. Listen, I know what that look is. It's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be the whole day.
Because we said this when we were on set the last day. We said we got to go have drinks somewhere and have a cocktail and talk and hang. And so we're gonna do it. We're gonna do
this, and I want it to be. I would love it in my head to be, we go to church, get our praise on, get the word, and then be like, let's go get a drink. Let's go have some brunch. Let's go get a mimosa or something, and just talk it up and kiki. But I adore you. I'm so honored and just happy to know you, because just researching you to get ready for this interview today, I was even more inspired, because you're a walking, living history for me. And the doors you've opened, the things that you've created, so men and women like us, Black people specifically, can come through and just be their authentic self. You're a part of that, and history is going to be really good to you.
Thank you. And I mean, we stand on the shoulders. I believe that strongly. So it is because the door being open for me that a part of my growing up has always been about making sure you're paying it forward. That service, mentorship, leaving spaces better than you found them, and making sure that you're reaching back and helping somebody else. It is just essential, especially now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much. And Michael, is there anything you want to say to people, your fans, or watching before we go? Your nephews or niece, proud of you, Uncle Mike.
And my nephews are on there. Yeah. I thank Allison and Kevin, everybody at After for letting us do this and take do a little moment on this day, Juneteenth, for giving us the space and the platform. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I appreciate your joy and your light, and just like, from the first time I saw you on set, always just a ray of light and kindness. And I watched your work, because when they asked me to do this, I went back and watched the whole first season, and I was like, okay, so I knew who you were, and I knew you before that. I don't know why, but I knew who you were.
I love that. Okay, I'll take it. Yeah. There's only one Cherry out there. Oh, well, no, Cherry Jones, but me, Cherry.
Yeah. There's only one you.
Don't tell Cherry Jones that, though. Don't tell her that. But anyway, listen, I love you. I adore you.
Love you.
And we'll definitely talk soon. And I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to just say a few words, and then I'm going to be done. And then I'm going to, those of you who are watching, I'm doing the IG takeover today. I've already posted some things. Please, you feel free to watch what I post later on today. I have a whole thing planned. So, all right, honey. It's good talking to you. Yes. Okay. Take care of yourself. And let's just periodically check in with each other.
I would love that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Zoom cocktail.
Yes, let's do that. Oh, Yeah, let's get it started. Okay, yeah, we're gonna do that. Okay, okay. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Bye, honey. Bye-bye.